Hey everyone, welcome to another free real estate advice Fridays. This is episode 35, I believe. Um, we have a guest today. I've been asking about guests. If you know anyone that has a small business, online, local, whatever it may be, it could be anywhere in the country. Just let me know, and I'd love to do interviews with local businesses. I did a lot of these up front when I started the business, and they've been really good. And I've built a lot of friendships through them. And I think it's great to just shine a light on local businesses. I try to do a few every week, but this is the first one in over a year I've done an interview. So if you know anyone that would like to do what you're about to see, let me know. Doesn't matter size, big or small. Happy to do it. So without further introduction, I'm going to bring in Meg. Meg is an old friend of mine back from high school. We'll discuss that shortly. She is launching a business called MM Lifestyle Solutions, and she's going to talk to us about that a little bit. And hopefully you find this somewhat interesting. Meg's great. I've known Meg for a long time, and I think she's going to do great in this venture. And we'll talk about that as well as application to real estate. And I'm going to try and talk Meg into sticking with real estate sometime in the future. So without further introduction, here's Meg. All
Hi.
right, Meg. How's it going?
All right. How are you?
Doing good. So, I wanted to laughingly remind you how we met when I was the scorekeeper of the freshman girls basketball team, something I caught a ton of flack from my friends, which is funny because I was asked to do it by the great Parker Snare, and me as a, mediocre athlete. I'm like, well, this is a good opportunity to get in good with the coach. Didn't really work out, but it was fun in the meantime. I saw you launched your business, and I wanted to get in touch with you and say, why don't you come on and talk about it a little bit? And I saw some of the services you're offering, so I can definitely give you a little context as it applies to real estate, because it's super popular in real estate, and it's only getting more popular. And but with that, why don't you tell me a little bit about your business?
All right. So it's Meg McGeehan Lifestyles Solutions. And essentially what it is a virtual assistant. So I'm really more focused on the copywriting part of it, editing and copywriting. It's something that I really enjoy and I love. I'm actually a teacher by trade. So I'm doing a lot of editing all the time and fixing writing and things like that, but I enjoy writing as well. So it's something I like to do. And this business will give me that opportunity. I also will do a lot of administrative type of things. I'm a big time organization freak. So,
Yeah,
so
that's great.
I like processes and protocols, these are the things that, the checklist. So let's get this stuff done. And, I like that type of thing. So
Yeah, for sure.
it's definitely something I think will be a strength for me in this business.
That's
So,
fantastic.
yeah.
So I mentioned to you that prior to real estate, kind of part of what guided me into real estate was I was running a small business consulting. I was management consulting full time, and I was doing small business consulting on the side. And I used a lot of virtual admin, virtual assistant services when I was doing that, because I had a full time job, so I needed help in just kind of prospecting and getting things organized. And even then, I was doing actually a lot of interviews like this, and even just scheduling these is really tough. In fact, that's why I don't have more interviews on this on a week to week basis, because it's so hard to like solicit people and be like, will you come on my broadcast? And they're like, what is this? What do you want from me? And so that's why it was easy to reach out to a friend and be like, hey, come on mine.
Yeah.
I know like some of the things in real estate that we use them for is, as you know, I'm sure things are just absolutely crazy right now. So we're just swamped all the time, and it's a lot of travel. It's a lot of just being in your car all the time. And we have a lot of back office stuff that's the first thing that suffers. And the challenge I know for me personally, and a lot of agents that are like me that are doing it full time, is when you finally get back to the office, you really have to get back to your lead gen stuff, and you don't have time for all the back office stuff. So it's great when we have someone that supports us, and that stuff really should be done immediately anyway. So it's like we're always chasing it. So having a good virtual assistant is fantastic. And do you market it as virtual assistant or virtual admin or?
I'm marketed as virtual assistant right now just because
Yeah.
I'm kind of, trying to nail down exactly all of the tasks that I'm really suited for, and in what businesses that I want to work with and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you mentioned that we've known each other for a long time, but you did not
Yeah.
mention that a couple of years ago that I reached out to you about real estate, and that's kind of
Yeah.
how we kind of reconnected after
Yep.
far too many years of not
Ran into
talking.
you at an
not
open
being,
house. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yep.
So I do have my real estate license. It's in referral right now, but it is something that I was really interested in, as you know, and I
Yeah.
want to kind of be a part of the industry, but I don't think, being out there in the, the front of the biz is my thing.
Yeah.
I think the back of the biz is probably like more my speed, things that I really, like I said, um, probably enjoy the most. But I think that's something
Sure.
that, like you said, everybody needs, at this point, especially with how busy it is, that help,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Back office support is huge for us right now because
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
is 40 hours a week is a long distant memory for me. So and like I said, that's the first thing it suffers, and that's not good because it kind of destabilizes our transactions and can cause a lot of consternation with our clients if it's not handled properly. So like I said, I'm always chasing it, and it's I'm pretty good about it. Some agents are better than others, but I
Mhm.
could definitely use assistance for sure. But yeah, it's kind of crazy out there. I mean, I'm gonna go on record right now and say that I don't believe that you're done with real estate. I won't believe it. I someday I'm gonna contact you and say I have a better opportunity for you,
Okay.
because you were doing good. You had kind of one client you were working with, and you were
Yeah.
asking all the right questions, and I was like, all right, you're definitely getting the hang of it. But yeah, right now, especially if you're a buyer's agent, which most beginning agents are,
Yeah.
it's so hard right now. It's really hard if you are part-time or um, new because it's so competitive and
Mhm.
there's so much pre-negotiation now. So it's either you have to kind of go all in and just be open to like constant coaching and all that, which is very time consuming, obviously, or we wait for things to get a little more balanced, and then it'll be like my first year of real estate, everything was very balanced. So it was actually like, all right, I found a person that wants a house. All right, let's find you a house. You found a house, great, let's go buy it. All right, we bought your house. Like that was it. And like now it's not like that at all. It's just like
Yeah.
constant swing and miss, and constant coaching of clients, and helping them calm down about interest rates and competitive situations and waiving things. And it's pretty brutal out there because I don't like waiving anything. Appraisal if they have a lot of money, but not everyone does. I hate waiving inspections. I think it's a horrible practice.
Yeah.
But right now, it's like you have to tell your clients, either listen, you could consider waiving inspections. I do not recommend it. However, if you don't waive inspections, you're not getting this house. Like so,
Right.
it's like a horrible conversation.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Because it's just
So
everything's moving so fast. But again,
yeah.
I get you. I understand. I really there's something that is very fascinating about the industry to me.
Oh,
So I
for
really,
sure.
yeah, it's
It's
like,
not boring.
no, no,
No, no.
no.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there'll be a time when it's a little more accessible, but I could definitely understand now is maybe not the time. Again, like if you have listings or like someone tapped you on the shoulder and said, "Hey, I have two houses to sell." Like, all right, maybe you dive in, but it's
Yeah.
tough when you're on just the buy side. I'm actually because the market's unbalanced, so I have like 16 active buyers right now, and I have like two listings I'm working on it, which is I'm usually 50-50. So
Right.
that's 16 buyers to two sellers. That's not 50-50. Um, well, why don't you tell me a little bit about how you decided to get started in this, and
Well,
maybe a little bit about your background?
yeah, so like I said before, I'm a high school teacher,
Yep.
and I love teaching, but the last couple years has really been a struggle, with
Hmm.
COVID and the pandemic. I mean, as it has
For
been for
sure.
everybody. Um, so and with the cost of things, inflating so much, living
Yeah.
here in
Yeah.
New Jersey, it's
Yes.
been a bit of a struggle for all of us. So I was looking for some way to kind of help the family, just bring in a little cash on the side. And I found
Yep.
this freelancing course, and I started taking the course, and I really was like, man, this is something I could sink my teeth into. So
That's
I
great.
really, yeah. And I've done some, like work to just to get experience, just like testimonial type work.
Mhm.
So I did a lot of copywriting. I actually helped somebody rewrite all their website copy, and I did a little bit of social media stuff. So I'm getting into that a little bit, which is really kind of interesting. The marketing part of that, which is
Yeah,
is really I love the idea of speaking in somebody else's voice, and I think that's really interesting too. So I kind of just started down this path, and I thought, let me see what goes on, and with all of the experiences that I've had over the course of the last maybe 5 or 6 years, it just seemed like the right time to get into it.
sure.
So I just kicked it off. I'm like, all right, let's do this.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
get started. So,
I did the same thing with my small business consulting. It was the same thing. I was like, all right, let me figure out, where I can put my feet down in this space.
hmm
And what ended up happening is I was working with a lot of realtors to try and get their marketing going. And I would follow up with them later and say, hey, how's it going? Or is that successful? Should we make any adjustments? And they're like, oh, you know what? I haven't even taken a look at it yet. And I was like, all right, why am I doing that end? Let me actually just try to do the real estate end. So it worked out, but I did have a few clients. I was able to kind of get my feet under me. But I will tell you, on the real estate side, like the writing of the descriptions of the homes is like,
hmm
I think all of us would tell you that's like one of our least favorite parts of the job. And I don't mind writing. I actually grew up as someone who really enjoyed writing.
hmm
It's just like with all the things you have to do to get a house listed. It's
hmm
like the one thing that kind of weighs on you. Like you're a little drained at the point where you have to write that. So
right.
again, it's just great to have that. And I think I mentioned to you yesterday or the day before that I've used VAs in the past, but mostly overseas VAs. And not for nothing, they're all great people. But it's a very different thing. It's very much in the class of you get what you pay for.
hmm
Much higher learning curves. Often some level of language barrier. It varies, obviously,
Right.
and that's actually the biggest factor in the cost varying is how big of a language barrier there is.
Right.
They actually like rate them by language barrier. But I did find in the end low ceiling on like capabilities. And the language barrier could be tough because I was often asking them to do, copywriting and stuff like that, writing copy, I should say. And that was kind of where things would kind of top out. And
Right.
it eventually just wasn't really working for me.
Right. I
So
think a big part of it too. I mean, I think about, when I bought my home, it was 7 years
mm,
ago, but we looked at like 30 houses.
yeah, yeah,
I remember clicking through and reading the descriptions of things, and you look at the pictures, and then you're like, does this look like a place? Does this sound like a place I could live? Right? Is this
yeah,
what
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
looking for? And so you have to look for somebody who is describing a house the way that potential buyer is looking to live in that house.
100%.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
And so,
That's your chance at that first impression.
yeah,
And not just the copy, but also the pictures often get it wrong, and it's
yeah,
big money when that goes wrong.
yeah,
It's
absolutely.
something that we talk about constantly in the office here. And you're welcome to come to any of these if you just want to meet people here. But I do host a biweekly mastermind here in the office,
Mhm,
and with newer agents, that's one of the things that we're always talking about because a lot of times they'll get their listing to market very quickly, too quickly, and
mhm,
it's kind of incomplete. The write up is not quite correct. The photos are flawed, stuff like that. It's one of the early like training points with new agents. So
hmm,
um, it's interesting because I told you like you should definitely you have relationships here in this office for sure,
mhm,
and I think this is another thing for you to consider is that this is a really good bridge for new agents is if they are still learning, you can say, hey, I've written a number of these and I have a pretty good idea of what you want to do and I'll present it to you. And that could be a very good help to newer agents.
right.
So I don't know if any of them will be hiring you, for many hours a week, but I'm sure there could be some opportunity to help them out because that is often a very early sticking point with newer agents. And like I said, a lot of us are just exhausted by the time it's time to write it, and I've had it with the house, and I'm just
Yeah.
sick of thinking about it. And I'm like, oh shoot, what were the key points? Like, so it would definitely be a welcome help. We also have, and I don't know how deep you got into this when you were working as an agent, but we have our backbone software Command,
Hmm.
and even that's a little bit of a struggle with a lot of agents. Some agents are just not tech savvy, or they're just not organized, or there's so many things.
Right.
And even like if you got some level of being adept in that software, I think it would be a huge opportunity for you. Because again, there's in real estate, we're just running around like chickens with our heads cut off, so
Right.
it's hard. So it's
Yeah.
good to have someone you can just pick up the phone and say, "Hey, Meg, I need help, and I need it now."
Yeah.
Yeah, you should come by sometime. And I always tell people, everyone's welcome. You don't even have to have a relationship. You don't even have to be a real estate agent if you just want to like see what we talk about. But definitely a good networking opportunity. There's usually at least 10 people physically here, and then maybe another few on the Zoom call. So if you ever
Okay.
want to come by, just let me know. It's
Yeah.
every other Tuesday. I think it's this Tuesday coming up. But yeah, just text me anytime. You're welcome to come.
Yeah, definitely. I would love that.
Yeah. All right. That's all I got for you. Anything else you want to talk about with the biz?
No, I'm that's pretty much it. I am actually a member of the KW Clinton Facebook group,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I'm gonna jump in there and
Do it.
leave some info if anybody's interested, for some services or even just to discuss, how they think that they could use a VA if they have any
Ye-
ideas or
I would be really surprised if you don't get a few bites that way,
yeah,
because this is like the new thing in real estate. And new is relative. I'd say over the past 2 years, it's become a lot more popular, but it's only
sure,
gaining traction. It's not losing traction. So I would be shocked if you didn't get a few takers.
yeah.
What's the easiest way for people to get in touch with you?
Probably my email address. I don't know. I mean, my phone number I could give you, but I don't know if that would be a sort of a bizarre first contact, like
Yeah.
randomly calling me out of the blue. But so
You have
my
a Facebook page though, right? For
I
the biz.
do have I
Yeah.
do have a Facebook page up, and I'll share all this stuff in the KW group, and then my email address is just my name, Meg McGeehan, and then lifestylesolutions@gmail.com. So
Perfect.
yeah,
I'll put it all in the comments too, so people can see it if they want to reach out.
awesome.
But no, it all sounds great, and I wish you the best of luck. And when you get tired of this and you want to sell houses again, and I give you the clear that things have balanced out, we'll,
Okay.
we'll definitely get that going. What I would like to eventually do is, and I think I probably told you this up front, is have a situation where I can just pass buyers along.
Yeah,
But right now it's just because I don't have any listings, I'm running with the buyers myself, which is not ideal because it's so time consuming.
yeah,
Especially when people are striking out. So
sure.
I'm showing the same. I have a guy I'm writing an offer for today. It's the third time he's put an offer in, and we're talking, he's put in major, beautiful offers, but he's just had bad luck so far. So it's
Yeah,
it's tough out there right now, but keep us in mind, because I do think you've got good potential there. You were asking the right questions. That's always like the key indicators when people are finally getting out there, and like, what questions are they asking?
yeah,
Sometimes you're
yeah.
like, oh boy, this is going to be this is going to be a big mountain to climb. But you were asking very good questions. I remember when you called me when you were on that one. I was driving back from North Jersey, and I remember telling people, I was like, she's definitely asking the right questions. So,
Well, I
but
appreciate
in the
that.
meantime, I think this is a great avenue, because I think you'll get indirect exposure to the industry for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think it's a great avenue to go with your skills.
All right.
So I'm excited, and we'll check back in a few months and see how it's going, and see if you want to plug anything else, or see if the business has shifted at all. And
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, awesome.
Awesome. Well, I
All right.
appreciate your time. Thanks for having me
Yeah, you
on.
too. I hope you guys are doing well and staying cool. The AC's out here in the office, so I'm dying over here.
Oh my gosh.
I
Yeah,
can tell. I
it's
look all
like
flushed. Like, yeah,
it's
I'm
like
looking at my.
nonstop at our house. It's
Yeah,
like
I'm
nonstop.
not kidding either. It's 82 degrees in here right now.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's a little
Oh.
rough. So, all right, I will talk to you soon, Meg. Thanks
All
so
right,
much for coming
sounds
by.
good. All right, take it easy. Bye.
Take care. All right, that's my old buddy Meg. Yeah, we went to high school together, as I alluded to jokingly, but it's real. I was the scorekeeper for the freshman girls basketball team at Northumberland. That would have been 1995. I graduated in 98, so I think it was 95. And I caught all kinds of flack because my girlfriend was on the team. And as far as I recall, I think that's the first time I met Meg. She also played basketball. And Meg's actually a great basketball coach as well at Warren Hills. And I'm excited for her. I think she's got tons of talent. She's very easy to work with, great charisma. So I think it's good. It's a great avenue for her. So, but anyway, so I did want to talk about some things in regards to the market. So I'm going to bring up some things in the background here while I'm talking. As always, I see a few of you on. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the comments. If you do try to make a comment, the software I use is called StreamYard. It'll ask you to register. That is legit. There's nothing. It's not nefarious or anything. I think you just have to kind of register with them real quick. I don't think it's actually registering. I think you're just giving them permission to post your name because obviously it is your name. So if anyone has any questions, go through that. It takes 2 seconds and then post your questions in the comments. All right, let's see. So let's talk about everything. There's a lot of stuff going on right now. Let's see. Give me a second. You'd think I'd be more prepared for these things at this point. Okay. All right. In my other screen here, I'm just bringing up some slides I want to share with you. And actually, I'm going to close my door real quick. All right. So, the hot talking point in regards to the market these days is essentially interest rates, for one thing, are going up. As we know, the Fed raised the rate this week quite a bit, the highest since 1994. They're targeting inflation, and that's the move they make. Now, it's an important point here. So mortgage rates are not necessarily linked to that rate increase. In fact, right after they did raise it, the mortgage rates actually went down a little bit. What I've been told, I was going to say I'm no financial guru. I was a financial guru. I'm no longer any sort of financial guru. But what I've been told is if you look at the 10-year Treasury, that's a more accurate indicator of what's happening with mortgage rates, not necessarily just that Fed rate increase. Doesn't mean that the interest rates are just going to raise by that much. So look, interest rates are right around that 6% mark right now. 2 months ago, they were around the 4% mark. And then if you went back, 6-8 months before that, they were, around the 3 mark and sometimes even a little bit lower. So people are freaking out a little bit as far as like, oh God, it's 6% now. Now, listen, that is going to affect your purchase power, obviously. If you're financing at 6%, then your monthly payment available to you is going to obviously go up a little bit in terms of interest. So you're going to have a little bit less towards principal, and your purchase price is going to go down a little bit. The interesting thing is we're not seeing prices go down necessarily. That's going to take a while, if it even happens. Historically, it really hasn't happened too much. There's like a little up and down, but you're talking like 10% maybe. It's not like 3 months from now prices are going to be down 30%. It's just not how it's been historically. So, I don't think there's any reason to panic. I mean, this is going to knock some buyers out of the market, which quite frankly is probably the best thing that can happen for anyone that's trying to buy right now, because it's going to get less competitive, obviously. So, which in effect should slowly kind of slow prices down. My prediction, again, I'm speculating here, but that we're not going to see a decrease in prices. We just don't typically see that. But what we're going to see is a slowdown in prices. Prices are just rising and rising and rising to just recently. I mean, literally in the past few weeks, we've seen some of the highest prices here in Hunterdon County we've ever seen. I mean, literally historic prices. Your standard custom colonial in Clinton Township, that's always been a $750,000 house. Some of them are coming up near $1 million. But it's not a blanket rule. The houses that I'm referring to were spectacular. They had huge upgrades, beautiful pools and finished basements and all that stuff. So, the houses really weren't far off. But they are as high as I've ever seen them. That is for sure. People are still doing things that I don't advise, like waiving inspections and waiving appraisals. If you have the money to waive appraisal, I'll just tell you that, over the past few years, things are generally appraising, even with these crazy prices. So that's a little less risky. But obviously, waiving an inspection, especially if you have septic involved, is obviously risky for very obvious reasons. And I hate it as an industry rule. I say it on here like every week that I hate it. It's just not something that you'll ever hear me recommend to waive inspections. But there's not much we can do about it. This is a free market, and if people want to, waive due diligence and take on risk, and they have the pockets to do it, then that's their prerogative. But all the professionals are going to say, I don't recommend it. Your realtor, your attorney, everyone's going to say it. And if you still want to do it, that's definitely your choice. So, but I think we're going to start to see less of it. And I really hope we do, because I don't think it's good for anyone, including the sellers, because if something goes wrong, scrutiny is going to come back to the sellers. Now, it doesn't mean the sellers did anything wrong. They probably didn't. I don't even know if I can say probably. They hopefully didn't. We'll say it that way. But, who wants that additional scrutiny? Give people a chance to do their due diligence and get it all out in the air. Give them their chance, and then they can't really come back to you after that. Now, listen, if you don't disclose something as a seller, it's a different story, but that never changes. You're always supposed to err on the side of disclosing everything you know about your house. But, having that period where, let's just say that you buy $1 million house and you waive inspections, and then, 2 months down the road, the septic fails. And, the sellers in this scenario they didn't know what was going to happen, and the buyers are upset, understandably. A new septic is 45-50 grand on a $1 million house. Are they going to start poking around and saying, oh, did they know about this? I for sellers, I just don't think you want that scrutiny. Maybe nothing will come out of it, but why put yourself in that position? So, I think you're going to start to see some of these things change a little bit. I'm going to show you some slides here, just to give you a little additional context here. And I didn't review these too much, so we're going to do this together. Let's see here. What's the easiest way for me to do this? I'll do a screen share. Share screen. Let me just rearrange a little bit. And maximize this. Share screen. And here we go. This one. All right, let's see what that looks like. That's not the right thing I want. 1 second. There we go. All right, so let's look at a few things here. Again, I didn't review this beforehand, so we are freewheeling here. We're going to go through this together. This is actually provided by KW. This was a big part of our annual thing, but the data itself is provided by the National Association of Realtors. It's legit data. There's nothing real crazy going on here. This is all verifiable. Looking at total sales, annual home sales, this is units. So in other words, number of homes sold. Interesting patterns here. You can see what happened leading up to our crash back in 2006. Looks strikingly similar to what's going on right now. But look at the numbers. I mean, we're talking about they went down 20%, somewhere in there, but people are still going to buy and sell homes. It's interesting looking back at the 90s, they're just, I guess population was lower. I'm not sure why that was, but as you can see, the trend here, I think some of us that are in this industry and make our living off of home sales are probably a little concerned that, it's just going to get more competitive out there. I think what you're probably going to see is a lot of the part-time agents and the people that got into this industry because they heard the market was crazy are probably going to drop out. And hopefully those of us that, do this full time and really work the system and, do the things we need to do to, support our families. I think most of us will probably be fine. It'll be a little bit more competitive, but I don't think we're going to see I'm not too concerned about it. I'm trying to be an optimist here. I always talk about this. So there's always seasonal changes here. So we're in June here and we're entering summer. That's generally when we see the most activity. So even like earlier this year when people were like, oh my God, is this happening? Are we hitting a slow period? What's going on? Is you can actually see that in 2021, we actually had a much busier winter than usual. But there was a little bit of a frenzy here because rates were still super low. And I think, there was a lot of FOMO going on, fear of missing out from people that were either buying or selling. So I think that there was a bit of a scramble there. And then things kind of leveled off here in the spring. This is an important one. So home prices annual. These are annual averages. So you can see, again, looking back to 06 is like we kind of peaked out. And then things dropped, right? I think they have these are average prices in thousands. Annual median home price. So, and then you can see in the following years, things leveled off a little bit and then they started rising again until we hit the peak in 2021, 2022. 2022 is projected, obviously. I don't think that's going to surprise anyone listening to this that, the past 2 years have just been absolutely crazy. It's certainly not going to surprise me. I'm here to vouch for it. But here's the important thing here is from 1990 to 2022 is we had following this yellow line, which is basically averaging out the long-term average increase, is you're still seeing year over year 4% increase in home pricing. So, if you're one of those people that's like, listen, I'm a little nervous buying in this market because isn't the market going to crash? And then, I'm stuck in this house for the next, 10 years because I can't get out of what I paid for it. It's impossible to determine that. If I could determine that very easily, then I could just, speculate on the real estate market and not have to sell homes. But, historically, dating back to forever since real estate existed, home prices have appreciated. It's, considered to be one of the safer investments out there. Not financial advice. So I always have to offer that disclaimer. I'm not a financial professional, but I think we all know that, you can't find too many very wealthy folks that don't dabble in real estate. Real estate is generally considered to be a very good investment, good return on your dollar. There is definitely sweat equity and elbow grease and capital requirements and everything else, but generally speaking, it's a very good investment, especially if you're living in the house, because essentially all you have to do is make sure that it's on par with what you would be paying if you didn't own the house. So in other words, rent. The rental market right now is crazy. It's arguably more crazy than the resale market, which is what we're talking about. So you're really not going to get like a huge break by kind of staying out of the market. Now, if you're a buyer who's like, I wanted to get involved because I saw an opportunity with the low rates and it would work for us, and now with the higher rates, it doesn't work for us. Okay. And if you're comfortable living where you currently live, then that's fine. But if you're having any thoughts about an improvement to your current living situation, these fluctuations shouldn't necessarily be terrifying. You're speculating within a very small range. So is it going to turn out that if you do it right now, that we're going to look back and say you nailed it, it was perfect? Probably not. But it's almost impossible to say, because I honestly think that the prices are going to keep rising slowly, hopefully slowing down, like I said, but they are going to keep rising. So if you sit out and you're waiting out an interest rate, you are becoming a real estate speculator, which is, you're just talking about your primary residence. Most people within reason shouldn't really get involved in the whole real estate speculation thing. So, if you're going to, I always tell people, listen, if you're going to live there for 3 or 4 years and then try and flip it, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe this isn't a good time. Maybe it is. I'm not sure. But if you're going to be living there for 10, 15 years, then, you do what you got to do. And if the rates are 6% now and you're thinking that they'll decrease in the future, that's probably a fair guess because, um, it's fair to think if everything crashes, that there'll be refinancing opportunities for sure. Um, and there's other instruments you can talk to a lender. There are arms and stuff like that. I don't get too involved in the arm world. I'm not even going to comment on what I think of arms. I know they've been changed quite a bit after what happened in '06 through '08, but um, is that a good option? I have no idea. It's better to just talk to a lender about that. I'm just letting you know it is an option. But I think more likely is get yourself in a conventional. And I'm speaking, if it were me, I would get myself in a conventional. It's okay. It's 6%. That's not great. I know all my friends have 3%. And, there's definitely that mindset. But if you're at 6%, I think there's a very good chance that, within the next 5 years, you'll be able to refinance. So, it's all relative. If it's a life event where you need to upgrade your house because your kids need more room, or you need to downgrade because your kids have left the house and you're tired of paying the bills. Heating oil is as expensive as it's ever been, and utility costs and just general, everything costs more now. So if you want to keep costs down and you need to downsize, don't not do it because you think you're gonna suffer from the 6% mortgage. That's definitely not a good strategy. That's gets into that penny wise pound foolish territory. So again, just a kind of a reminder that, listen, within the grand scheme of things, you're probably going to be fine on your home. That price is going to rise. Let's see what else is interesting in here. Inventory. So obviously, you guys probably are. Any of you that have listened to this before will probably get very sick of me talking about inventory, but this is real. I mean, this is crazy. So you can see that yellow dotted line across the middle. That's what we consider to be a balanced market. I was just talking about how when I got into this business in 19 that I considered the market to be balanced, but according to this, I actually wasn't. But I will tell you, as a working professional at that time, I was pretty happy with it. I didn't complain. It was common that your listing would take, 30, 40 days to sell. That was pretty much the norm. When your clients saw a house, you had a pretty good shot at it. Every once in a while, you'd be involved in a deal that had 2 or 3 offers. That was for like a primo listing. But honestly, it was probably 1 in every 5 houses that I was putting an offer in. Now it's literally every house is multiple offers. Um, and we always talk about months of supply. So months of supply is basically determined by how many homes sell. And so let's just talk about Clinton. So Clinton, you would take a look at the average number of homes sold in a given month against the active inventory, and that will give you your month supply. We are typically under a month supply in Clinton. In fact, I've talked about in previous broadcasts, at any given time, there's only like 1 or 2 homes available for sale in Clinton, and that's gotten a little bit better. The inventory is generally ticking up a little bit, but not nearly fast enough. So, but this chart kind of indicates that if you look here, they only have it up to 21, but 2.3 months supply. This goes back to 99. That is a historical low. So if you're a seller, do you think that you might benefit from this supply situation? Most definitely. That is not going away. Rates are going up. So maybe you get a little bit less, but it's hard to argue that there's a better time to sell. If we could have the rates back at 3% and still have the 2.3 month supply, then sure, maybe that would be a little bit better. But again, you're talking about small increments. In the grand scheme of things, trying to make a big life move, I don't think those small increments should be a factor. And if they are a factor, then I think you have to kind of relook at what you're trying to do. I'll give you an example of that. We have this conversation all the time with clients. Is we're looking at their financing and whatnot, and they say, you know what, if we can keep our monthly payment under $2,500 a month, that's fine. But once we get to 2,550, 2,600, we can't do that. And then we have to have this conversation with our clients. Like, if you're cutting it that close, we probably should be looking at a different price point. And that's kind of what I'm saying about some of these decisions that are being made now, is they're on a larger scale, but they're also generally, you're talking over 30 years, or minimally, even if you're paying cash, you're talking about amortizing over the course of the time you're living in the house. That's why I'm saying if you're going to live there for 5 to 10 years, you're probably fine. I'm not saying you're going to definitely come out ahead, but I think you got to do what you got to do. At least you're putting equity into a home by making your mortgage payments, and you're not paying rent. You're not paying someone else's mortgage. So again, I think people get a little twisted when things start moving in the wrong direction, but it's all kind of relative. And if you got to look at much longer term things instead of looking at like 2-3 month windows about like what's happening with inflation or interest rates. Listen, it should always be a consideration. Obviously, we can't be oblivious to it, but I don't think it's anything to get all twisted up about. As the buying things start coming down, interest rates, primarily inflation, hopefully that supply starts ticking up a little bit and we start moving towards a little more balance. So it might not be ideal in one situation, interest rates, but it might get better in another direction in terms of less competitive, less buyers. Buyers are going to drop out because of the interest rates, and that supply should start ticking up as the buyers start coming down. So again, there are all kinds of counterbalances. That's what makes the markets extremely complex, obviously. Mortgage rates. So obviously this is a very hot topic. So if you're looking historical average since 1972, 7.81. As we sit here, I should say yesterday, I didn't check today, but yesterday we were sitting around 6%. We are still 1.81% under the historical average over the last, 50 years, 48 years. So, again, historical perspective, long-term perspective, not necessarily short-term speculation. We're not trying to be real estate speculators when you're talking about your primary residence. If you're talking about investment properties, vacation homes, stuff like that, then speculate away. But it again, it often just beats the alternative. Like, are you stuck in a living situation that's not ideal for you just because you're trying to speculate about interest rates? That's, to me, in my opinion, that's not a great strategy. Historical average on a shorter period, so the last 30 years, is still 5.97, which means we are sitting almost exactly at the last 30 years historical average. We look back to what some of our parents had to deal with. Some of our parents, I'm talking like my own generation. You look at some of these interest rates peaking in the early 80s, 16.63%. Can you imagine buying a house at 16.63%? And obviously this is as, the government started to get involved and, things started to change. That certainly leveled off and has kind of steadily declined up until 21. And now, what we're going through a market adjustment or whatever you want to call it. But for now, as we sit here right now, things are still within that historical average. So again, hoping to achieve some sort of balance here. Here's your month to month over the course of 15 through February of 22. You can see all the different, again, if you're going to get into speculation, January 21, we saw that big bump in sales, kind of against the grain of what we see in a seasonal cycle, because January was extremely busy for January, because January 21, we had a 2.74 rate. And then again, we saw another dip, that would be probably around here, just a little dip or a level. And then it's on its way back up. That was February 22. That was 5 months ago, 4 months ago. And now we're at 6-ish, give or take. So again, this is just kind of what happens. It doesn't stay very steady. Affordability Index. 21 went slightly up from 20. But you can see, again, historical context here. Again, looking back to those early 80s, that would be a nightmare scenario. I can't even really wrap my head around that. It's hard to think about paying 16% on a mortgage. We're not worried about Canada right now. I have a lot of friends in Toronto, and I know it's just absolutely crazy up there. It's actually worse up there than it is here. It's interesting. I'm taking a look for my own entertainment here, but it's interesting because they actually look like they're not having the inventory problems necessarily. affordability is definitely an issue. All right, let's see if there's anything else here. Unemployment, hopefully on its way back down. Yeah, you can see the trend here, obviously. People are returning to work, obviously. Wages down. Yeah, we all know inflation is absolutely just popping up right now. All right, so I saw this one yesterday. I thought it was kind of interesting. So talking about affordability and putting some perspective on it. So you'll see a couple things here. Price of a car, for example, 46,000 average price of car. In 2021, that same car in 1989 would have been 15,350, but then you have to obviously do an adjustment for inflation, and that would get you to 35,000. So you still have a 30% change for the car. Same with gas. We all know what's going on with gas right now. And if you look at this price for 2021 at 351, I think we'd all love to have 351 for gas right now. Comparing that to 1989, I mean, even when I started driving, which would have been 97, I think gas was usually around 99 cents, somewhere in that region. I was always buying the cheapest gas I could, but I think generally from like 99 cents to like $1.10 when I started driving. We do an adjustment for inflation on that 97-cent gas, and we get 225. So change to from 1989, 56%. And remember, again, that's based off that 351 number. So it's obviously approaching 75%, somewhere in that range. So obviously that's not great. Here's where it gets interesting. Looking at price of houses. So a $346,000 house in 2021 would have cost you $94,089. Adjusting for inflation, that house would have cost you $218,000. The value of the house is quite a bit different, so up 58%. But look at your mortgage cost. Is in 2021, if you have a payment of $1,455 in 1989, that payment was $825. Adjusted for inflation, it would have been $1,915, much higher. So mortgages are actually much cheaper in 2021, looking at that affordability. And wages are generally up. So $25.90 in 2021 would have been $980, adjusted for inflation, $22.75. So yeah, just offering a little bit of perspective here on things, because people are just kind of getting nervous about things, and it is what it is. Listen, real estate's one of those things. It's like you're either going to be conservative in life, and that's your comfort zone, or you're a risk taker, or you're somewhere in between. That's all of us. I personally, I'm probably a little more of a risk taker inherently. I'm in real estate, so I have a little more risk tolerance. But if you're risk averse, then maybe you don't want to get in the market right now. But if you make that decision, at least have some numbers to support it, because I think there's just this constant need of media talking points and social media and stuff like that to grab the consciousness of this like manic time that we're in. And there's some validity to it, but I think it just kind of gets sensationalized a lot. So it's good to look at the numbers and kind of get a historical perspective. If you need to do an adjustment to your living situation, I don't think that these things should stop you from doing that. Now, if you have questions about employment and stuff like that, then that's another story. But even then, I mean, that's always a factor. If you're buying a house, you do have to think about it. And of course, if something happens, there are programs and stuff to help you with that. But I saw these numbers yesterday, and I thought they'd be helpful to just share with everyone. General observations on the market this past week or so. Yeah, there's a few houses that I looked at this week that I was just kind of surprised that they were still available. It's been a while since that's happened, and it's, for me, in my position, it's extremely refreshing, because it's very easy to look from the outside and think, man, real estate's killing it right now. If you're a realtor, you must be ecstatic. That's not the reality. The reality is very, very different. It's a lot of disappointing calls to clients who did not win out on homes. Sellers can be tough these days just because they are, again, feeding into this mania of like, I'm going to get whatever I want for this house. I had a lady call me, seemed like a relatively smart lady. This was actually a few years ago. She had a very nice house, and probably even at that time, $850,000 house. And she said that I heard people are getting crazy amounts for the house, and I'm like, well, yeah. I mean, I guess historically speaking, yeah, we're definitely at a peak right now. And she said, "Do you think I could get 2.5 million for my house?" And I said, "I haven't seen your house. You just called me. But give me a little perspective. Or what are we talking here? 7, 8 bedrooms. What'd you pay for it? 1.4. Like what? Give me some perspective." No, it was nothing like that. It was a 4-bedroom colonial. A beautiful house. Probably like I said, $850,000 house. But whatever it took for that person to get to that mindset that they thought that was a reasonable question is what I think is so important to remove that from the conversation, because that is not an informed position. And I had a very nice talk with her, and I explained to her the situation and how we run comps and everything else. And I gave her a price, and then she said, "Oh, well, then never mind. I'm not getting 2.5 million. So why would I want to do that?" But consult your professionals. I'm a huge advocate, not just obviously I'm a little biased on the real estate side, but in anything that I do, I'm a huge advocate of just deferring to professionals and the people that are out there doing it every day, because they're going to have so much more perspective for you. So, I always offer, if you have any questions whatsoever, you can write them in the comments, you can call me, you can text me, you can email me, you can Facebook message me, YouTube comment, whatever it may be. And I'll be happy to give you as much question as much of a perspective as I can. But it's constantly changing. I mean, it's almost hard to keep up with. The content for this broadcast changes week to week, because there's crazy things happening left and right. So, but that's pretty much it. I thought that would be somewhat helpful. If you have any other questions on like inflation, interest rates, stuff like that, just give me a call and I'll be happy to answer you. If you want to talk more about the financing side of things, I can definitely make recommendations as far as lenders that will have very good conversations with you. As many of you know, my most common person that I work with is Todd Mershon from Union Home Mortgage, and he is excellent at discussing these points. He really is very kind of calm and methodical in the way he can describe it to you and make it digestible for anyone. And he's really the one to talk about, and maybe he can get more into speculating what's going to happen over the next few years. But, I think those of us that try to be optimistic in this industry think that, if anything, a little balance returning to this market with the interest rates and inflation and everything else that's going on is actually going to be a welcome sight. So if you are buying or trying to buy, the competition's going down. If you are selling, it is still, as I showed you, the inventory is at a historical low. You're still going to benefit. It is still a seller's market. It's going to be a long time before it's not. And that's generally driven, one of the key indicators for that is that inventory. Let's take another look at that. So, the market is adjusting, but it hasn't shifted. So when we say shift, we're talking about going from a seller's market to a buyer's market. We are nowhere near there. I mean, it could be years before that happens. It might never happen. There are theories out there that it will never happen, just because we all know we have a house shortage in the U.S. So let's look here. Where's my inventory? Mortgage rates, inventory monthly, inventory annual. So again, looking at across the country, we're at this 2.3% mark, historically low. In order for that to hit that yellow dotted line, which is a balanced market, 6 months inventory is considered a balanced market. We're at 2.3. It's going to be a long time. I mean, even if it was like aggressively moving in that direction and everyone started listing their houses, it's still going to take, at least a year, I would think. So we're far away from it not being a seller's market. But a little more balance coming in is a welcome sign for everyone. I promise you it will help everyone. So, hopefully the other outside factors, inflation and interest rates, don't get too out of control, because that can throw things into, a spiral again, and then we'd be looking at a little more dire outlook. But in the short term, me personally, as a professional, feed my family based on being able to sell homes, I'm remaining fairly optimistic that we're going to get some balance introduced to the market. So, all right, I'm going to wrap it up. I got lots of stuff to do. I hope you're all doing well, and have a good weekend coming up. Good weather coming up. It's a little hot today. I hear it should be cooler tomorrow. As I showed Meg, we're up to 84 in my office because our AC's down. I'm told they're coming today, but there it is. Just for proof of my dedication to do this on a weekly basis. I'm sitting here in this 84-degree office, and I have contracts to write and everything else. So, but anyway, I hope you're all doing well. Hope this was helpful. If you have any further questions, please reach out. And most importantly, be well and take care. Let me losing my mouse here. This is tough with the multiple screens, but yeah. So anyway, that's why I look flush, by the way, because it's hot in here. So I am healthy. It's very hot in here. So I hope you all enjoyed, and hope you're all doing well, most importantly. And I will see you all next week. Take care.